Welcome. Today, we are diving deep into the massive, pretty complex, but honestly fascinating world of international investment. It's the engine that builds global companies and can transform entire economies for better and sometimes for worse. So let's get right into it. Okay, so let's just start with a really fundamental question. You see a company building a new factory in another country, or maybe buying up a business overseas. Where does that huge amount of money actually come from? Well, the short answer is investment. But we're not talking about just any old investment here. We're talking about foreign investment, this incredible flow of capital that crosses borders and really has the power to reshape our world. To really get a handle on this, first we've got to understand what actually makes an investment foreign. I know, it sounds simple, right? But in the world of global finance and international law, the definitions, well, they're everything. So at its very core, a foreign investment is when assets, think money, equipment, you name it, get transferred from one country to another. But pay attention to that last part because it's absolutely crucial. The whole point is to generate wealth, and it stays under the control of the original owner. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. In international law, especially when, disputes pop up, that simple definition we just talked about, it's often not good enough. Courts and tribunals need a much more solid way to decide if something really counts. And that brings us to this thing called the Cellini test. It's basically a legal framework to figure this all out, and it has 4 key conditions. First, you've got to actually contribute something of value. Second, it has to last for a certain amount of time. This isn't some quick transaction. Third, the investor has to have some skin in the game. They have to share in the risks. And finally, the investment has to actually contribute something good to the host country's economy. But here's the twist. Even this super detailed legal test isn't the final word on the matter. Not at all. It's actually a huge subject of debate among international lawyers. So yeah, even the experts are still arguing over the exact definition. So we've established that just defining foreign investment can be pretty tricky. But once an investment is actually made, it generally follows one of 2 main paths. And the difference between them? It really all boils down to one simple word: control. On one side, you have what's called foreign direct investment, or FDI for short. This is where an investor takes a pretty big stake. We're talking 10% or more, which gives them real influence, real management control. Think of it like buying a restaurant and then actually running the place. On the other side, you have portfolio investment, or PFI. This is way more passive. It's like buying a few shares of that same restaurant stock. Sure, you're an owner, but you're not in the kitchen calling the shots. Now, both of these are super important, but for the rest of our time here, we're going to zero in on FDI. And why is that? Well, it's because FDI is the hands-on, direct control kind of investment that has the most profound, most immediate impact on a country's economy and its people. Okay, so even inside the world of FDI, there are 2 major ways an investor can go about it when they enter a new country. They can either build something totally new, or they can just buy something that's already there. And this slide just shows that difference perfectly. A greenfield investment is pretty much what it sounds like. You're starting totally from scratch, on a clean slate, like building a brand new factory in an empty field. Then you've got brownfield investment. That's where you buy or merge with a company that's already there. And sometimes it might be a business that's struggling a bit. So which one do you think countries prefer to receive? Well, it's overwhelmingly greenfield. And the reason is pretty straightforward. A greenfield investment creates a brand new source of money and, crucially, brand new jobs. Brownfield deals, on the other hand, often lead to big restructuring. And unfortunately, that can mean layoffs as the new owners try to cut costs. Okay, so we've covered the how of FDI. Building versus buying. Now let's take a look at the why. Because based on a company's actual business strategy, we can break FDI down even further. There are basically 3 main types here. First is a horizontal FDI. This is when a company does the exact same thing it does at home, just in a new country. So like a US clothing company buying a clothing chain in Sri Lanka. Second, you have vertical FDI. This is all about buying a part of your supply chain, like a Japanese car maker buying a parts supplier. And finally, you get conglomerate FDI. This is when a company invests in something completely different from its main business. Think a UK supermarket buying a hotel chain in the Maldives. All right, this all brings us to the biggest, most important question of all. After all these definitions and all these categories, is foreign direct investment ultimately a good thing or a bad thing for the country that gets it? The arguments for it are really powerful. FDI brings in a flood of foreign money, which is a huge boost to the economy. It creates jobs, it means more tax revenue for the government, and it often brings in amazing new technology and skills that local workers get to learn. It also makes local companies step up their game to compete, and it can lead to brand new infrastructure, like roads and power grids.
But, and this is a really big but, there's a serious downside. All that new competition can completely wipe out smaller local businesses. There are huge risks of environmental damage, not to mention the potential for exploiting workers. You can have cultural clashes, and maybe most importantly, a country can start to lose control over its own economy when the big decisions are being made in a boardroom thousands of miles away.
So what it all boils down to is this. It's a trade-off, a massive trade-off. A country can get incredible economic growth, but maybe it comes at the cost of its local culture, its environment, or even its own economic independence. And that leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? What is the right balance between growth and sovereignty?